Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people follow orders to the letter to spite someone. And in today's episode, it's all about bad bosses yet again, guys. And OP teaches a Karen boss a lesson they won't forget after refusing to let them have any time off. I hope you enjoy the stories. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So a while ago, I used to work as a manager at a very popular US coffee and donut chain. The owner of this franchise was always harassing us. She was power hungry and verbally abusive. To put how outrageous her treatment of staff was into perspective, I watched the woman training a new male coworker once. He messed up a drink, and she proceeds to throw the drink on the ground and demand he clean it up or be fired on the spot. She also demanded that we include her when dividing tips up at the end of every night. I'm pretty sure that's illegal, but hey, I was 17 years old and I didn't know any better. Anyways, I had this 30-something female coworker with 2 children. The woman was from India, and she would always bring a little extra dinner with her when we worked together to get me to try new foods from her culture. She was such a sweetheart and a key player in the story. At the time, I'd been working there for 3 years. I was a shift manager, and I was in charge of training new hires for closing shift. One day, my lovely female coworker comes in extremely upset. She explains that after working 6 days a week, every week, for the past few months, she was denied time off for her son's birthday party. I immediately told her to not worry, as I was free that day and I would work her shift. No problem. So I come in to work early the next day when the owner was still in, to let her know that I would be taking lovely coworker shift on her son's birthday. Now, mind you, the date in question was almost a month away, so we were giving her plenty of notice. That's when the owner says, "That will not be happening. That's her shift, and she will work it. No days off." The owner said that with a smile, and then tells me to get to work. Now, something about her smile told me she was getting off on denying my coworker this day off with her family, and that broke something in me. So for the next 3 weeks, I stewed. I wrote out my 2 weeks notice and I kept it in a sealed envelope in my car. We were short-staffed and new hires needed training, so I decided to stick it out a little longer so that my coworkers wouldn't have to pick up the slack. One day, I pull in for my shift and I see the owner's in. I walk in and I hear yelling from the back. The owner is back there and she's screaming at the group of morning shift workers. She then dismissed them and starts in on my lovely coworker and another coworker about how incompetent they are. At this point, I'm done. I get between her and my coworkers and I go off, telling her that we're all tired of her abuse and that I will not stand to see her targeting people anymore. I then brought up lovely coworker and how she was denying her days off out of spite. We go back and forth for a bit, and that's when the owner says, "If you don't like it, then get out of my sight. You can quit." And that's when I reply, "I quit. You need me more than I need you anyways." She then smugly replies, "I'll be needing you to hand in an official notice of that. You can come visit me tomorrow in my office." Little did she know, on this particular day, I had my resignation letter in my apron. I then said to her, "Since you told me to quit, I'm quitting right now. There's no tomorrow." Nothing felt as good as ripping that letter out of my apron and slamming it down on the counter, and then wishing all my coworkers the best and telling the owner to have fun burning in hell. She took me off the schedule for my last 2 weeks, but I heard from lovely coworker that the owner was having to work 12-hour days to work out hiring new people as more people walked after I quit. But with her attitude and being a power-tripping boss, nobody new stayed long. I have no idea what happened. Maybe she chose to not renew her lease, or she ran her business into the ground, but the business closed 6 months later. Not a crazy compliance, but damn, it felt good to stand up for myself. You know what, guys, I'm willing to bet the place closed because she couldn't keep any staff members long enough to keep the place going. Like, with that attitude towards your staff, it's only time before your business goes under, right? Like, how long can you possibly keep it going when you keep yelling at the people you employ? And I'm also willing to bet that a boss like that paid the employees very little and expected a lot out of them, which seems to be the case with a lot of crappy owners. All I can say is I'm glad OP put their foot down that day and started the snowball effect that led the place to ultimately close down. Good frickin' riddance. And like always, I want to say that the owner learned a hard lesson, but I'm pretty sure people like this learn absolutely nothing. Because nothing is ever their fault, right? So this happened a while back. It starts on June 13th. as I receive an email from a VP not over my department, or we'll call bad VP. I'm told that my team will be required on the 4th of July. I politely tell them no, that our team's been scheduled this day off and people already have plans. My team is the IT team, and as many of you know, the IT team gets shafted every single time it can get shafted by any company. So over the course of the week, I let my team know what's happening. I let them know that I've been reaching out to higher-ups to fix it. I also tell them that if their plans are ruined, I will make it right at work. So over the course of 3 meetings, it starts to look like things will not go my way. In response, I send an email to the CEO of the company. All my higher-ups know that I was going to do this, and they said I should, as he's very family-oriented and that he would not allow anyone to work on a national holiday. Well, he's on vacation in the Bahamas until the 6th. But his assistant informs me that he would look at it after he gets back, to which I repeatedly slam my head into a desk. So I tell everyone that it'll be a work-from-home day, and that we'll be setting my cell phone as priority in the call routing, meaning I would get most of the calls. To be honest, I was expecting almost 0 calls, especially since I was asked to send out a notification that IT support would cover the 4th of July, and I never sent that email out. A day later, I was given another outrage. I was told in an email that my employees would be required to be at the office, and no one was allowed to work from home. They would be checking the door badge-ins to verify that we were at the office. I asked why in an email, and they said that they wanted to make sure that nobody was at home playing video games. Now, we normally work from home about 2/3 of the week, so I walk into the person's office, and after a very long conversation where she was losing the logic war with me, she told me, quote, "It's just IT. You guys don't even have lives. What do you plan on even doing on the 4th of July? And no, I'm not kidding you, this is exactly what they told me. So I report this to my VP, who said, "I'll take care of this. I likely won't be able to until after the 4th, so get creative." I know this man well. We've worked together a long time, and his "get creative" is code for screw around. So I asked the person requiring us to be at the office if they cared if we had an office party. They say no, as long as it did not interfere with the call flow. Even suggested using my new company card to pay for it. In their words, they said, "Go wild." And here's a pro tip: never tell me to go wild. At this point, it was the 21st. I let everyone know what's up, but that I have something planned. I asked who had things planned that day. 2 people told me that they were planning to shoot fireworks off with their family, but the rest were planning a barbecue with their friends. So that's when I write up an email to the VP over my department and the bad VP. I tell them all that I let everyone know. We were all expected to work until 8 p.m. Monday. Per the conversation with the bad VP, I'll be having an office party as a sort of sorry to the guys and gals who got shafted by this decision. The bad VP replied again, "Thank you for your understanding. Also, yes, I would expect an office party if I had to work on the 4th of July as well. So go wild and enjoy your time. Use the new company credit card if you need to cover expenses. Also, I should not have to remind you or anyone else, no fireworks or alcohol on company property." So now it's time to tell you about my office. See, a while back, the IT team was moved from the main corporate office into a smaller building by itself. It's got a nice gaming break room, a decent-sized gym, and a full-on drink bar. Soft drinks, mind you. No alcohol at work. Out back is a big patio that crosses county lines as soon as you cross a small creek. A creek that just so happens to have a footbridge over it, leading into an empty field. So that's when I start making phone calls. On June 25th, I call up everyone into an hour-early meeting that morning. I explained to all of them that I will be making it right. I then asked everyone to invite their friends and family to the office. No supplies will need to be brought by anyone. I also tell them that this will be all non-alcoholic, but that I'll be planning something for everyone. I told them to expect all food to be provided and they don't need to bring anything, unless they want to bring some fireworks. So in short, nobody will have to spend a single dime. So the 4th of July comes, and the entire day, we did absolutely no work. There was no tickets, and no calls came in. Well, 7 calls did come in, but from the same person, the bad VP. She was calling to make sure we were manning the phones, and all of us were playing games or watching movies in the break room. 6 p.m. rolls around, and everyone was told that the food was ready. People were expecting hot dogs, hamburgers, maybe a bratwurst or 2. But what they got, expensed by the company, was a full-on barbecue feast with pizza and other foods. There was smoked brisket, spare ribs, smoked sausage, smoked turkeys, both kinds of tater salad, coleslaw, green beans with bacon and onion, pizza from 2 different places, excellent hamburgers, and bratwurst hot dogs. On desserts, there was cakes, cookies, 4 different types of pies, and about 2 pounds of fudge. Families and friends start showing up at around 6 to 6:15ish. Some did bring alcohol, but I told them that they would need to leave that in their cars as I was not that crazy. Of course, some weren't too happy with that, but they agreed as it was a free dinner for random strangers. So let me set this scene for you. I'm out there with all calls routed to my cell phone and everyone's just having a great time. We have a ton of people there just enjoying the fun night, chatting about stuff, eating the food, and occasionally lighting off some sparklers or throwing firecrackers. My VP, not the bad VP mind you, showed up with his family and he brought some water balloons for the kids and the man-children. Around 8:30, it's getting dark, and people want to shoot off more than simple sparklers and firecrackers we'd been using. So the VP over the IT department had everybody cross the footbridge over the county line, and off company property mind you. And that's where we set up a big wooden board, using it as our launch pad. So we fire off what we had for about an hour, and just sort of hang out for a while. Around this time, people were tired and ready to head home. I told people to take home the leftovers within reason. We all clocked out at 8 p.m. and nobody left until about 10:30. The bad VP did call once more while we were out back at the party. It was around 7:50 and she called asking for a status update. My exact words to her were, "Well, you are the only one to call us today. The rest of us are on the back patio enjoying the 4th of July shindig." She just simply acted like my boss, and she said, as long as no alcohol or fireworks are on company property, I do not care. We ate roughly half the food catered, the rest was taken home. A small group did volunteer to stay behind to clean up, including my VP. We then had a funny conversation how this will make waves with the bosses, but he said he had my back, and he asked how much this cost. At that, I give him a sideways look, which made him laugh. Tuesday morning, I submit the expense report to my VP. This email would inevitably make its way to the bad VP and up the chain to the CIO of the company. It would be a bad idea to give out the exact cost of the party, but I can tell you that because of this 4th of July party, new rules were put into place. Any expenses of over $4,000 or more must be approved by the VP over the department, and the full expense report must be sent to the financial department for a review after the fact. And here's a hint, the party cost over $6,000. The barbecue was the most expensive part. I didn't order from a low or mid-tier place. The place I ordered from has consistently been on the top 10 listing in our city for the last 30 years. I ate at that place so much that I made friends with the owner. It's the best barbecue I've ever had. The pies and cakes were custom made by a bakery, and the cookies were made by a boutique cookie place. I had 12 packs of Coke, Coke Zero, Dr. Pepper Zero, Pepsi, and Pepsi Zero. I bought 5 pepperoni, 5 sausage, 5 cheese, 2 Hawaiian, and 3 cheeseburger pizzas from one place, and nearly the same number from another place. The burgers were from an excellent burger place that did catering, and I know that owner well. All in all, this was the most expensive office party in the history of the company. The only things more expensive than this were some business meetings, where the CEO rented private rooms in a high-end restaurant. As for the CEO, the guy was outraged, not at the cost of the party mind you. He knew that the party would not have been necessary if people had been allowed to go home. He was outraged that IT was the only group required to work on that day. When I submitted the logs showing how we received no real phone calls and no service requests, and that we basically watched movies and played games during our shift, he had heard enough. He apparently sent out a scathing email about work-life balance and the importance of holidays to every upper management person in the company. Now, it was kind of funny, as people wanted me to get in trouble for what I did. But the reality is that other departments have done similar things in the past, just not on the scale that IT did. The bad VP was reprimanded quite effectively and sent me an apology email. I forwarded it to the team with a strong hint to not reply. My VP let the CIO and the CEO know about what the bad VP said, how you IT guys don't have lives. The bad VP did actually confirm she said it in a meeting with them, and it did not go over well. I've never heard people yelling in an office meeting like that before. The CEO of the company actually yelled at her. The bad VP may or may not be let go or forced to resign. All I know is that she got yelled at really bad. Strangely, there's now no longer any pushback for my bid to get everyone back to working from home. Guys, that was such an amazing malicious compliance, and the fact that OP got away with it all, while the bad VP actually got in crap for it, makes it even sweeter, guys. Especially after the comment of IT people don't have lives, right? Clearly they do, Karen, and OP 1000% won some loyalty points for sure. I'm sure everyone there will be talking about that party for a long, long time. Absolutely brilliant. So this is a story from my mom and grandmother. They gave me permission to post. So quite a while ago, both my mom and my grandmother worked for a local casino. At the time, the casino had a 90-day trial, and then you would get insurance. During the course of them working there, during their 90-day trial, the casino switched their policy to 18-month trial before getting insurance. So they then proceeded to find reasons to fire all their employees who were coming up on the 90-day, so they wouldn't be grandfathered in. My mom knew this was coming because she saw person after person who had gotten hired a little bit before her get fired for ridiculous reasons. So when she got called into the office, the day after she had to go to the hospital for a severe allergic reaction, she knew what was coming. They marked it as a no-call, no-show, because she started having a severe allergic reaction on shift and her EpiPen didn't work. So she walks into the office and she's informed that due to her no-call, no-show, she's being let go effective immediately. That's when she asked for her final check. They informed her that she would receive the check after she turned in her uniform. My mother then proceeds to strip down to her underwear and bra and drop the uniform on the supervisor's desk and demand her last check. My mom just stood there in her underwear while they tried to convince her to turn in the uniform at a later date. My mom tells them, "Nope, you said I'd get my check when I turned in my uniform. There is my uniform and I want my check." Eventually, they wrote the check. She then walked out, taking the long route through the casino, saying her goodbyes to all the staff and regulars on her way out. A couple of days later, when my grandmother had her shift, she knew what to expect. She was also coming up on that same time frame, and my grandmother proceeded to do the exact same thing. She walked through the crowded casino in her underwear. Hey, not all heroes wear clothes, right? Guys, like the confidence that somebody has to be able to strip down to their tighty-whities and walk out in front of dozens of people is absolutely insane. Props to those two. And what surprises me is that so many people have done this, guys. Like the comment section is filled with it. This person says, "My mother did something similar. She was working at a Howard Johnson's restaurant in the 1950s, and she couldn't find a price for a chef salad that somebody ordered, so she made up a price. The manager was so mad that he fired her on the spot. So she unzipped her uniform, dropped it at her feet, and walked out in her underwear." And this person writes, "Reminds me of a gig I did, although slightly less dramatic. We had to wear special t-shirts while doing this job, and my original t-shirt was in my bag in another room. I was given the option to leave, which I took, because I think I was coming down with a cold. But I had to give up my shirt. And my supervisor seemed oblivious when I asked, 'Right now?' So I took off my shirt, gave it to the replacement guy, and walked through hundreds of people while in my sports bra, until I got back to my bag. The supervisor didn't bat an eye, which is why I think he was oblivious. I did get some looks, and I explained to everyone who asked. And for all of you who are wondering why they wanted their checks on the spot, OP comments, beyond any legality issues, they definitely were the kind of place that would string you along or find reasons to not give you your last check, or make it a really long time. And when you're the primary income for 6 kids, that just doesn't work. This is a story of malicious compliance that a previous boss had done, but it involved me directly, as will be explained. The time frame is early 2000s for reference. So in my late high school, early college years, I had a job doing telemarketing work during winter and summer breaks. While it was boiler room cold calling, we were primarily soliciting donations for agencies that had contacted us to do the work, so felt less scuzzy. Think police departments, fire departments, etc. We kept a portion of donations for operating expenses, and everything over a certain threshold went directly to the receiving party. Everyone wins. Now, I did enjoy the job as the scripts were simple. I was allowed to read a book and such between calls, and a number of my friends were also employed, so we could hang out during lunch breaks. The pay was a decent chunk above minimum wage at the time, so it was a good gig. I also had a knack for it. And at one point, I was 5th in sales all across their sites they had in operation, and 2nd in our building. One summer, while driving to work, my car promptly dies with no warning, and I'm left stranded on the road. As you do in this situation, back before cell phones were a thing, I walk to the nearest house and ask to use the phone. I call my dad, who starts driving to get me, and then call my work to let them know that I'll be late. My boss says fine, and he'll chat with me when I get in. My father shows up with my mom in 2 cars, and I take the extra, and he begins the arduous process of towing my car back to the house. It was a long process, but I'm off to work. I arrive to work, and I clock in almost an hour after the start of my shift, and I'm promptly told by the front receptionist that my boss would like to see me in his office, so I head on back. So the beginning details are completed. Cue the start of the malicious compliance story. Now, my boss and I have always had a good rapport. I'm a good worker, I get good reviews, and he and I have some similar interests outside of work that we can chat about occasionally. When I arrive in his office, he's shuffling some papers around as he's laid out a few documents facing me. As close as I can recall, this is the conversation that followed. My boss tells me, "Hey, I hope everything worked out with the car. I'm glad to have you here. So here's a couple of things I need to discuss with you. First of all, I'm sure that you're aware that being more than 30 minutes late to work is considered a Class C violation. There are 3 classes, from C to A, C being the least egregious." He then goes on and says, "This is your first violation, so I'd like to talk to you about what happens next." At that, I'm sweating. I've never been talked to about being out of order on anything while working here, and getting my first violation scared the heck out of me. So I'm sitting there, white-faced, and he continues, "So no official write-up or anything occurs for a first violation, or even the first few Class C violations, but it is a manager's discretion on the punishment depending on past behaviors. Now, you're a good employee, and I've put into corporate a few times to give you a raise, but because you only work during your school breaks, it's denied, as you aren't considered full-time. So with that said, the papers I have here are your termination papers, and an offer letter that I'd like to extend to you to hire you back again. So in short, before I file these, I'd like to ask, is it okay if I fire you?" So we go through the process of him firing me, which then allowed him to extend an offer to me to rehire me at roughly a 25% increase in pay, since he could justify to corporate the bump as he was hiring somebody with experience. In talking with him, he let me know that it was something he occasionally did to the high school and college workers, to get around the corporate's policy of not allowing raises to people that didn't work 1,000 hours a year. It was his own way of being maliciously compliant with a policy that didn't allow him to reward some people that he thought deserved it. My boss had apparently been waiting for me to do something this whole time, so that he could technically fire me for it. The way their back-end systems worked, it wouldn't even show up as a break in service, since the firing and hiring happened on the same day. And since I never worked more than the minimum 1,000 hours a year, I didn't have any tenure or anything to be worried about losing. The laugh he and the receptionist had when he walked me back to the front to introduce her to the new employee was enjoyable, and I've had a fun story to tell ever since. Guys, now that is a super cool boss. It's always great to hear that there's leaders like OP's boss out there who do watch out for and want better for their employees. Because you know what they say, guys, people don't leave jobs, they leave bad bosses. And a boss like that, one could only dream of having. And I only wish more people knew that when you do things for your employees and you treat them really well, it actually makes people want to work harder. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where a psycho Karen secretly poisons OP's daughter to prove that allergies aren't real. And the story gets even worse from there. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.